Hi guys, I'm Christy, and today I'm going to be doing the story idea writing tag. So I saw this tag going around, and I'll post the original creators down below. I've always wanted to do a writing tag like this. I always used to watch other, Authortubers doing them, and I would, in my head be answering each of the questions along with them. And now that I have a channel, I can do one of my own, so I'm really excited about that. And to those of you watching this, I just wanted to take a second and say thank you. I am a new channel, and if you are a fellow YouTuber, I'm sure you know what it's like to just be starting out. So if you do enjoy this video, please do me a favor and subscribe. It would really help grow my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Question number 1 is, what is your current story idea that you're working on right now? I have to be careful to say your because my Okie accent slips out. I've noticed in some of my videos, and I'll be saying your fur. That's just how us Okies do it. So anyway, my current story idea right now is a contemporary fiction. There is an adventure involved, a sort of quest for the main character. There's a lot of romance, and it does deal with some pretty heavy stuff in the way of mental health. So I'm really excited about the project I'm working on right now. I don't think I'm at the place where I'm ready to share a ton of details, just because I'm not sure how much I want to leave for the reader to discover throughout the story. So we'll see kind of how my marketing strategy plays out once I get closer to finishing it and decide kind of how I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, anyway, I'm really excited about it. Question number 2 is, do your ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? And I think most of the time my ideas are kind of derived from a certain plot, but it can be more of just a general concept. I think a lot of the time I love to use writing as a way of discovering how I feel about certain topics and certain things that are going on in the world or in, relationships or whatever it is. Just, kind of taking an injustice that I see and working it out in a story. I really like that about writing. I also, even though I'm working on my debut novel right now, I have written a ton of stories in college, especially, short stories. And, I did start a novel back in college that I haven't finished just yet. I kind of put it on the back burner to work on my current story right now. But I have found that, especially with my short stories, a lot of them have been inspired by songs. I don't know. I think a lot of people are this way too, where, just songs are, every song kind of has its own story, and they're just so inspiring. They just, make you feel certain things, and you're just like, oh, that would be such a great scene, or that would be, whatever. I love songs. And then also I tend to get ideas from dreams. It's funny, and I don't know if anyone else is like this, but sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was the best dream. That would make such a great novel. No, that would make such a great series, And then I swear a couple of hours goes by, and if I haven't written it down, it's just gone. So I'm just left thinking, like, was that really a good idea, or was that just like my dreamy, foggy brain thinking it was? I don't know, but regardless, it's gone now. And then the next story that I'm writing right after this one, I already have it planned out, was, I would say, more inspired by a particular character. I'm not going to go into depth right now, but there is someone in pop culture history, very famous, and I was so inspired by their life, and I'm like, I want to write a book based on that character. I'm really excited about it. So basically, I'm just all over the place. I get inspired by, injustice, dreams, songs, people, I don't know, everything. Number 3 is brainstorming. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start with ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? And I don't think I've ever worked a story backwards. I know some people find that really helpful because, middles are the hardest thing for everyone. At least they're the hardest thing for me, and I hear that they're the hardest thing for most other writers out there. So I know a lot of people, they'll just come up with the end first and then they'll work their way backwards. But I don't think I could do that. I always just start from the beginning and then just like plow my way through. But that being said, I do revise a ton, and so, you know, my beginning will change later on. It changes a ton, which I think a lot of people do as well. So yeah, I would say I'm pretty boring in that way. I just start from the beginning and work my way until the end. I mean, but I do have a general idea of how I want it to end, even from the very beginning, so. Number 4 is keep or toss. How do you know when you want to keep or dump a story idea? And I would say, I mean, I know this is probably in terms of an entire book, but I would say as far as a scene, I know if I want to toss it when I'm starting to get bored. I just think that is the worst sin that you can commit when you're writing a book and you want people to, well, one, you want people to review it positively, but you want people to buy it, and yeah, you don't want to bore your readers. I mean, at least that's just like one of my biggest fears as an author. So anyway, yeah, if I'm bored, I know they'll be bored, so. And then as far as ideas for novels, how I know when it's going to work or not is pretty much just when I start working it into a 3-act structure, and I just know that I don't have enough, especially for that middle, you know, those middles just being so hard, and, you know, that's where the majority of your story is. And so really in Act 2, if it's thin, I know it's not ready for me to get started on. I just have a lot more work to do on it. But that being said, I really don't dump my stories. I tend to put them in a notebook, and I'll just not chip away. It's more like add in. I will add stuff in, like, sometimes over years, you know. Stories will just sit there and continue to grow, just like a little plant or something. And they'll, you know, they'll just grow until I feel like they're ready for me to start working on. And number 5 is original idea. How much of your original idea for your story is actually used once everything is finished? And this is an interesting question because I know a lot of beginning authors, you know, authors that are just starting out, tend to overwrite. And so their books will be way too long once they're done with them, and then they have to cut words and things like that. For me, I tend not to add enough description and those kinds of things because I'm trying to pound it out. I'm trying to get that story out. And so I don't really put a lot of that extra detail and stuff into it. And I have to add that back in later. So it's funny because, you know, my story, when I first write it, the first draft will be about 50% of what it ends up being later on. And so this is an interesting question for me. I think I might go into this in another video later on, just about kind of, you know, how this happens and then kind of how I fix it later on. And then number 7 is dream. Have any of your stories originated from a dream or a nightmare? And yeah, as I said in the one of the previous questions, absolutely dreams for sure. I have never had a story influenced by a nightmare, but that would be interesting. I mean, I'm sure other authors, you know, that write suspense and stuff like that do. So, I don't know. We'll see. It hasn't happened yet. Number 8 is Doppelganger. Have you ever had an idea for a story and then seen it in a book or TV show or movie? All the time. Constantly. And it sort of makes me wonder sometimes, you know, because I'll have such a specific idea and then I see them producing it somewhere in some other medium, and I'm just like, you know, it makes me wonder, is my idea not as original as I thought it was? Or like, is somehow my idea getting out into the world? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everyone has the same thought. I think usually when I see that happen, it always just kind of makes me beat myself up a little bit just for dragging my heels on that idea. But at the same time, it is kind of reassuring to know that it was a good idea, obviously, you know, like it was produced, it's out there. So it's like someone else thought it was a good idea. So it is a little bit reassuring that, you know, just it helps me know that I do have good ideas. I just need to pursue them and follow through with them. Number 9 is big screen inspiration. Have any of your favorite movies or TV shows sparked ideas for scenes in your book? Absolutely, 100%. Well, first of all, I know the question is about movies and TV shows, but I just wanted to throw out there that every time I read a book, I get some sort of inspiration for something, whether it's, you know, conflict or dialogue. I might have a scene that's just, and I think the same thing goes for TV shows, whether or not you really realize it. As you're watching a show, you'll be like, oh, I really like that exchange there. I liked how he didn't just offer an answer to her immediately. It was kind of delayed, and, you know, he kind of, and they kind of went back and forth a little bit before there was some resolution there. So I just think anytime you're watching movies, TV shows, or reading books, you know, you are gaining some valuable knowledge that you can use in your writing, and that happens to me all the time. But specifically, I would say my book has some elements of Eat, Pray, Love, whether, you know, the book or the movie. I've read and watched both, and I love them both. So yeah, some elements of that in there, and also Vicky Cristina Barcelona. I love that movie, and yeah, I would say it's a little bit inspired by that too. Oh, so I did make a note that one of my scenes is, this is embarrassing, but it's a little bit inspired by a scene from 50 Shades of Grey, not like a raunchy scene or anything, but the scene where they're in the jet, like flying around, and she's all happy, and they're like, whatever. Just the feeling of that scene, and Ellie Goulding's song kicking in at the right moment. It's just, I think it was more just the feeling of that scene that I wanted to convey in one of the scenes in my novel, so now you know. And then also, this is another book reference, but I was recently reading Everything, Everything, and the exchange between the guy and the girl in that book really helped me out with one of the things I was struggling with in my current novel. I was like, how, because there was a distance factor, and I was like, how am I going to get the two of them closer? So yeah, that was really helpful. Number 10 is nostalgia. So what's the oldest or first story idea that you remember coming up with or writing down? Well, actually, okay, so coming up with, I remember I had this story idea about, it was like about a tiny bunny. Oh my gosh. It was about like a tiny bunny, and it was like a tiny world. There wasn't really a plot. It was just like a tiny bunny, and it could like fit on the tip of your thumb. I don't know. That's what I came up with. But then, as far as the story that I actually wrote down, this I think was like in high school. I had to write. It was for my English class, and we had to write. It was a year-long project. We'd have to write these short stories, and so I wrote this one, and it was really sad. It was about this like brother and sister, and their house was burning down, and the brother like goes back in to get his sister's teddy bear, and he like doesn't make it out. I cannot believe I wrote something like that. I must have been pretty emo at the time, but yeah, I wouldn't write anything like that nowadays, but yeah, that was so sad. Anyway, so yeah, it was super sad, and I do still tend to write sad stories now, but I like to think I've grown a little bit, and hopefully, you know, the endings are a little bit more satisfying to readers now than they were back then. Thank you so much for watching this video. I definitely plan to do more tags in the future. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're new. I hope to meet a lot of other like-minded people like me out there. And until next time, bye.